What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. And, guys, today we are here a number of hours before the second round does officially kick off. There are still a ton of good players here available for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, there were some players that we did not expect. I know I definitely didn't expect guys like Will Levis, Joey Porter, Michael Mayer, some of these guys to be available here on day two, but they are here. They are available here for the Colts potentially to think about. The Colts do have the 35th pick overall. So they have the fourth pick here in the second round. And so you do wonder, what's the Colts strategy here? There's still all these really good players here. Now, obviously, I would say, Derek, out of all the guys that we did not expect to be here at a position of need for the Colts, I think Joey Porter Jr. is definitely a guy out of Penn State that we would love to have here in Indianapolis. I mean, the Colts have are looking for another outside corner with Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Facyson leaving this offseason. And so you throw in a guy like Joey Porter. Obviously, there's still a couple cornerback needy teams that may go ahead of Indianapolis, but there still is the opportunity that Joey Porter could be there. Or I throw out the opportunity because there are other guys still here. The Colts could potentially look to trade back from 35, accumulate maybe another day two pick, and still get a guy there. We've seen Ballard do this before.
Yes.
We saw him do this, a number of years ago when the Colts were early in the second round, trade back, get another second round pick, and just, they had like 3 or 4 picks in the second round that year. So, there's a lot of opportunities for the Colts here. Talk to me about some guys that you still like here. I mentioned a good number of them, but some guys here that maybe would be some good value for the Colts at 35, or if they decided to trade down, some guys that can still be available.
I'm in love with the fact that there's so many different guys still available, and I like the idea of trading back. Maybe 5 to 10 spots, you acquire an extra third rounder because there's still so many good players still available for what you actually want to do. And you mentioned a lot of the corners. Joey Porter Jr. is still there, surprisingly enough.
Yep.
And even when you look at some of the other best corners, still available. Tyreek Stevenson. You still have Keely Ringo. You have Julius Brents, which I know a lot of Colts people would love Julius Brents because he is the prototypical corner for an Indianapolis Colt because 6'2", 200 pounds, has a good productivity while at Kansas State. So, a lot of great things there. And he's an athlete, too. So that makes a lot of sense. So, Julius Brents might find his way back because of just how many corners there are. There's so many other people. So it may be an option for you. And then you have some of these interior offensive linemen. You still have Osiris Torrance, which a lot of people talked about with Indy getting a guard. If you wanted a guy like Joe Tippmann or John Michael Schmitz, who are centers, because that some point Ryan Kelly, who's now going into his 9th year with Indianapolis, has had some injury concerns. You question the contract. You don't know how much longer he's going to actually be playing.
Right.
And maybe you want to move some of these guys around. Maybe that would be something you could do because you don't really have a bona fide backup center. Danny Pinter's tried to hit that role, but you don't absolutely have somebody to be in the weight.
Sure.
And then, when you look at some of the wide receivers that are still available. Now, I'm not for the Indianapolis Colts taking a wide receiver in the second round. I know a lot of people are, but me personally, I think there's so many other wide receivers that you can get in the third round that I don't think you need to get right away. Because, looking at just the top 9 wide receivers left on the big board on ESPN, Jonathan Mingo, Jaden Reed, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, Josh Downs, Nathaniel Dell, Tyler Scott, Charlie Jones. Just looking at all this, there's so many names there. And even if you wanted to wait longer, late into the third round, there's still Xavier Hutchinson, Parker Washington, guys who can play that slot role that, I just think from a standpoint of, the best wide receivers, of the depth of the wide receivers is so important right now because yes, you need a wide receiver, but you absolutely need a number 2 corner if you're the Indianapolis Colts. You cannot afford to sit back and just say, oh, we're just going to keep going back and not get a corner, especially when you're looking at all these corners that are available. And if you miss out on these guys, then the further back you go, the least likely you're going to get one of those really good corners that could start right away for you.
Yep.
So you need to definitely be careful with that. But, I mean, what do you think the Colts are going to put more emphasis on outside of cornerback, like between interior O-lineman and wide receiver? What do you think is best for them?
I would personally go wide receiver because, I mean, I would love to be able to – you talk about the depth there, sitting there at wide receiver. I would be of the belief of, like, you want to surround this new quarterback, Anthony Richardson, with as many weapons as you possibly can. We've seen the Colts do this multiple occasions. The last two quarterbacks they picked, in the top 5, they did this, right? In 98, they had Manning, and they drafted all these different players. Now, some of them worked out, some of them didn't. 2012, the Colts did the same thing. They drafted, obviously, we know T.Y. Hilton. They drafted Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen, Vic Ballard, all these guys. Like, they just continue to add weapons there for their rookie quarterback. And now I would say this, though, Colts definitely, they have some young guys that they like at wide receiver with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, obviously. But saying that, I do think you need a different kind of receiver, right? We signed him Isaiah McKenzie, but he's not going to he's never really filled that role of what like Paris Campbell did last year in the slot. So I think you need to add some more competition in the slot there. Get a little bit of a smaller guy. We were hoping Zay Flowers would potentially fall to the second round for Indy, but obviously he didn't, which, great pick for Baltimore. But, yeah, I do really feel like wide receiver needs to be the move because, I mean, I feel like if you look out in the free agent market right now, and Ballard's talked about the Colts potentially looking to, go get, both of these positions potentially in free agency as well. I would say there's stronger – it's easier, I guess, to get interior offensive linemen, like decent interior offensive linemen than wide receivers.
You're absolutely
especially considering the market right now. There's really nobody out there at wide receiver.
And the free agent market for the most part was just like dead silent for the last month. Like in the month of April, nobody has done anything. Like there's been no big news when it comes to the interior O-line group. There's still somebody out there that if the Colts wanted to get a true bona fide starter, that could definitely be a thing. And I agree with you. I think that's a very smart thing because I'm looking at, these interior O-linemen just as well. I mean, after Osiris Torrance, you still got Braden Daniels. You still got Anthony Bradford. You have, and we've talked about Andrew Voorhees for the longest time. Right. I know Andrew Voorhees will most likely not play for the majority of the 2023 season, but we know Ballard is not one to give up on a guy because of an injury problem. And Andrew Voorhees, right now, if it wasn't for the fact that he was injured, would be up there with the remaining top 5 interior O-linemen right now if it wasn't for the fact that he's not going to play next year. So I love that. And like you said, there's more options in the free agent market for interior O-linemen before the season starts versus what we get in the wide receiver market right now. So, but I mean, looking at the wide receivers, I mean, which one do you think they would go for? Because you're talking about the wide receiver, but getting the right kind of wide receiver is the most important thing. I could see somebody like a Jaden Reed who, is a guy that gets open. He's not fast, but he's a guy that's very shifty. Or if you're wanting to go with the speed guy like Josh Downs, Marvin Mims, or Tyler Scott, or if you're wanting to go just classic slot wide receiver, Charlie Jones from Purdue was a big name.
I mean, there's a lot of good options there. I do think you just need a different type of receiver, right? Our friend Kevin Bowen, he kind of said, you have 2 power forwards in there. You need a guard, basically, if you want to view it in basketball terms. Like you have bigger wide receivers. You need a guy that's like shifty and speedy and can do things. You have Isaiah McKenzie, but you need a rookie, I think, a young guy that you compare with Richardson because that trio could be really good. I mean, the potential's out, above the roof. So it definitely is an option here. And I think it would be a good option. There's a lot of guys still available here at the wide receiver position.
I mean, here's the funny part. So just off a tangent, the last point we'll make here. Now, there are a couple players. You mentioned some of the players early, like some of the guys who are still available in the second round that in positions that the Colts don't need, but Michael Mayer, they're at still there. Brian Branch, still there. You know, and you talk about some of these players or Darnell Washington of all things, as we talked about it. Darnell Washington is like the Jelani Woods of this draft, like still more raw and how he's plays, but has all the potential in the world to be an amazing tight end because of his intangibles. So it's like, is there really an option that the Colts at 35 say, if Michael Mayer or Darnell Washington are there at 35, do we still see a chance because we have seen Indy take guys at positions where they didn't need it before, aka Jonathan Taylor, but they were so good. They viewed them as so good that they just couldn't pass up.
Yeah.
And Michael Mayer has basically been comped as the next George Kittle. And, George Kittle is widely regarded as a top 3 tight end in this league. So, is that an option for them?
That's tough, man. Obviously you love those players. And I think maybe in that situation, as much as you'd be tempted to, I mean, this team, you can't ignore the glaring need at corner. Yeah. So I think in that instance, it's all those guys are still available, like those 2 tight ends. As much as it'd be tempting to draft one of those guys, I think the move should be to trade down because there's going to be teams that want to come up and get one of those 2 guys.
Yes.
I really do feel like that. And maybe you could get a little bit more out of them saying, hey, we can take this guy, we could still do that. I mean, I would say just this. I wouldn't do it, but don't be surprised if the Colts do it because they've even said, we may have a player that is not necessarily a position of need. We thought at the time he was the best player on the board. So I could honestly see that happening. As crazy as that would be, I could see the Colts going tight end or, Brian Branch you talked about as well.
Or if somehow, some way, the Colts got a second round pick in the 50s, the late 50s, and somehow Darnell Washington somehow finds his way to there.
There you go.
I could see it. And like you said, we're not doing that. Most people assume they won't, but don't be surprised because the Colts do it before.
Nothing is off the board with Chris Ballard. I mean, we never thought in a million years they'd draft a running back.
And again, Anthony Richardson being the new quarterback, you're going to need to make sure you have weapons for this kid.
Yes.
And with Shane Steichen as well, Shane Steichen's going to have a lot of input because he knows what guys are going to work best with what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So if he's adamant to Chris Ballard that one of these guys is going to make an immediate impact and is going to set the league on fire, then I'm sure he's telling Chris one way or another. And of course, I'm sure that Chris and all these guys are looking at that. And they're maybe we can. Woo. Maybe we can't. It's one of those situations, but that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on who you think the Colts could be getting in this second and third round for day 2. Do they go position of need? Do they go outside of the position of need? But that's going to do it, guys. Make sure to check us out. We're going to be live streaming today, so make sure to check out our reactions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.